All right. 3, 2, 1. Family! What's going on, guys? This is my cousin Paul.
This is my cousin Liam.
And we decided to do something very different. Paul gave me a film that I was supposed to watch, and I gave him a film he was supposed to watch. The film that he gave me was Shane. If you haven't seen Shane, it's a film from 1953. It's the story of a used-to-be gunslinger who comes across a family in the southern part of America, and they're very, what's the word? It's like a house family.
Yeah.
They're kind of
down to earth.
Yeah,
ranchers.
Just down to earth in their own little in their own home. And he wants to put this whole life of gunslinging behind him, but a conflict is brewing with this group of people who are these ranchers who want to take this family's farm land and an entire community of people's farmland as well, just so they can raise cattle. Through that, Shane has to ask a lot of questions about himself, asking if he wants to leave the life that he once had, or if he needs to continue this life. There's some amazing things in this film, guys. I really loved it, first of all, to say. Thank you very much for recommending it. And I just want to say generally what I loved about it. I love the writing of this film. It's A.B. Guthrie Jr.
Yeah.
A.B. Guthrie Jr. wrote the screenplay that Jack Schaefer wrote the novel.
Yeah.
Wonderful writing in this film. And I'm talking about that in a few things. I'm talking about that in how the film progresses in its consequences. Because how the ranchers usually deal with these people, they go from one extreme to the next. First, it's just going through their fields.
Yeah.
Then it's shooting their cow, or shooting their one of the people's main sows, like their main pigs. It's breaking onto their property.
Yeah.
It's murder later on. The film crescendos very well.
Oh, yeah.
So it brings you to a very quiet place when Shane just enters, and it's kind of like, we don't know who this is, but you get hints.
Yeah.
With like when the kid, I forget the actor's name, but the kid like kind of cocks this Winchester, and Shane turns around and reaches for his gun, but he doesn't pull it, and he kind of restrains himself. There's a lot of things that are shown to us in this movie in terms of the relationships and the way characters, how they look at the world and how they react to certain things. So the script is wonderful, especially when it comes to introducing new elements, like the saloon brawl. Wonderful. The direction in this movie is great. George Stevens, I did not know he directed this film. George Stevens
doesn't feel like one of his movies.
He's such a good director. My favorite film of his is Giant, which if you haven't seen Giant, see Giant. What he's able to do is he's able to take a film that is not big in terms of its setting, but he can make it feel so gigantic with what is being presented to you, with themes and with the plot that is at stake. I love the acting in this film. Alan Ladd as Shane is so cool, but so gentle, so aggressive. He's not like John Wayne, where John Wayne is so confident all the time. Alan Ladd is very quiet with his confidence. He knows what he's capable of, but he wants to leave that. And how he speaks too is so impressive. I loved all the performances, especially the one though with Joe Start, the main father. He plays this community man very well. He rallies these people together. He has such a cool mind, but he's able to be really direct, and you feel the desperation in him when near the end, where he feels like he needs to go out and kill these ranchers, and because he feels like there's nowhere else to go. And I loved the villains in this movie too, those ranchers, because you understand. There's a wonderful speech where they break on the property, and he says, and I understand where he's coming from, and I don't agree with it. It's like he says, my family was here a long time ago. We had to work tooth and nail to get this land, and now it's being taken by people like you, by people who want to build communities. And it's like, you go to like a city or something for that, or go to somewhere else. We need this land. And then Joe says, this isn't your land, okay? Indian traders were here first. The Comanche were here. Other people were here first. Just because you were given it at birth or because you were given it through money doesn't make it yours. Okay, we're working just as hard to raise our families, and I love the themes of this film, the conflict of community versus self gain. So well done. There's so much great things in this movie that George Stevens, what he did. I don't know if you know this. The film, he did shot after shot after shot. He did take after take with this movie because he wanted to get it perfect with a lot of the stuff that's going in. But he also spent a year and a half in post-production.
Did not know that part.
That's the longest at the time that a film that was unheard of at the time in the 1950s. That surprised me too. I didn't think it came in the 50s. I thought it was like in the 60s. But there was a lot that surprised me about this movie. I'm not a huge Western fan. The only Westerns I really like are more contemporary ones. Like Unforgiven, I enjoy. The Hateful Eight is amazing, but it's Tarantino. And certain films I can appreciate, like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I like it, but I appreciate it more as a film rather personally. This is one where I can appreciate the Western genre, and I can personally enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's so much great things. But I think my favorite thing in this film is the direction, because I think a film like this could be very sappy, very sentimental, very.
It has been.
Yeah. But I think especially with the saloon brawl, George Stevens does a great job with showing it. And Shane is able to fight one guy no problem.
Yeah.
And then when Joey kind of comes in, he says, "There's too many, Shane." It's like, Joey, get out of here. And yes, he's able to take them on. He is able to beat them necessarily, but he can fight. And it's a movie that revelations. I love it when you can discover things through actions and not like somebody says something. Like you discover when you are on the journey with discovering who these people are. Like I kind of wondered why it was called Shane, because a majority of the film kind of leaves Shane for a while just to focus on Joe and his community. But then you start to discover more about Shane, and that's what I really loved. Generally, those are a lot of things. I'll get into more specific things exactly what I loved. I think I already have, but yeah.
Well, I'm just going to give you a little bit of information. Just fun fact.
Okay.
Alan Ladd was actually really short, so they had to film up.
How tall was he?
I can't remember the exact height, but if you look at the angles...
Our grandma told me this while we were watching the film. I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah. And so they actually had to work with the camera angles so that he could match height with all the other people. So, so grandma told you that, and my grandpa told me that. So.
Yeah, I've always known that Hollywood always had tricks for filming, but I think that's interesting. I didn't notice it with the cinematography, and I probably think back to it. But the
didn't notice it either,
But the angles, like the upward angle, gives somebody more of a stature of power.
Exactly.
And that's really cool, and I think, and while Shane doesn't flaunt that stature, it gives us sense that it is like a
bit of confidence
always around him. Yeah. So around him, this aura of greatness.
So just to kick this up, do you want to start off with the positives or negatives?
I'm going to actually start off with the positives first, because there's a lot more of them. The negatives are quick. But with the positives, what I loved, there was a callback to a film that I love, Inglourious Bastards, with the log, the big stump in the background. Yeah. And I love how this relationship between Joe and Shane is built. It's one where he doesn't trust him. And I love how he doesn't trust him, and he thinks he's part of the Ranchers. So we're introduced to this problem, the conflict that is going on, through Shane's eyes, which is great. And there's the stump moment where they chop out the stump together and roll it out. It's a great bonding moment, and then the fight on the stump, really great moment of showing how the relationship has gone. Little things like that. I also love how some of the film is shown through Joey's perspective, the young kid. The cinematography is very good for that.
My favorite scenes. Part of the beauty of the movie is Joey has to pick his father. Is it going to be Shane, or is it going to be his father? Because one's a community leader, an all-around decent guy, and the other one's Shane, this awesome gunslinger who just came into town and started helping people.
Yeah, so. and it's really cool to see that kid, how he idolizes the gunslinger, and he's always like bang bang with his like toy gun, and his father, like there's very little interaction between Joey and his father, because he's dealing with the community, and Shane is always kind of just there, and he's kind of teaching him a lot. And what I love is how Shane talks to him. He treats him as a kid, but he talks to him directly.
Yeah.
I don't like it when I see, movies where the kid is written to be just childish and nonsensical, which I love. I love the setting where this kid is growing up. He knows where he is, and he knows the kind of world he's in, so he asks these questions. It's like, what were you? Like, and it has this big interest in the world and, being a gunslinger. And I think that has Shane have to ask himself a lot of big questions as a character. Like, is it a cool thing to be a gunslinger? Or is it just kind of this dying past? And he does acknowledge that. And an ending that I can only describe as quick. So quick. That's another thing I love. It's like, it's not like glorified.
No.
It's, what I love about the Westerns is that it's fast in the end. It's a lot of build up.
Yeah.
And as opposed to something like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where it's just a lot of long moments, a lot of long things where the conflict isn't really in direct proportion. The conflict between the community and the ranch hands is always there. And we're always following that throughout the film. And the ending feels like a payoff to that conflict. And I love how none of the community members are in part of that conflict because they are not fighters.
No, they're not. I completely agree. And throughout the whole thing, it's this discussion is, how can we do this? Because we're not fighters, which I really appreciate. And I think we agree on just every point that you've brought up so far.
I mean, I can't say anything against this film because it's very easy I think it's very easy to say, well, it was of a time, but here's the thing. A lot of people talk about classic films as if it's a movie that is like, oh, it's of an era where this is this and this is that. It's just, I think the only thing that's really changed from here to now is some of the politics have changed, technology, and all of that. A lot of the same things that affected us decades ago affect us today. The difference is, censorship boards and all of that. There was, I just had a flash in my head of something I loved. But with this film, what I loved actually is how this takes place in the South, and how these people, these are Southern families, probably torn up by this civil war, and this is a community of people that has a very one of the characters. He's a very small character. He's named Stonewall, and after Stonewall Jackson, how Wallace, which is the cool character, he doesn't talk almost at all, but how he provokes this Stonewall guy to go for his gun is he calls him out on the of his patriotism for his side of the war, and I love that. I love when those moments of where you can feel the history that is taking place during this film, when you can feel those moments and how they affect people.
And as you said, the action's quick. It's not this whole long build-up like in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where they just meet the eyes for, felt like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's just, you feel the tension, and then it's gone.
Yeah, and it's a feeling that I love. It's a personal... there's a feeling as opposed to appreciating the technical work involved, which there's a lot of.
Oh, yeah.
It's a feeling of appreciating every ounce of feeling and emotion that the director is putting in, that the actors are showing us, that the story is being presented. A good story is something that shouldn't matter how long a film was made ago.
Yeah.
That is something that will always last. We see it with every movie nowadays. We see it, well, not every movie, of course, sorry. We see it with the movies that we remember from the past and the movies that we remember now. The good ones are the ones that we will come back to.
Exactly.
With the good stories, the good technical work, all of those.
Rewatchability. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know. I just have another question for you. When it comes to Wilson, what do you think of his relationships with the ranchers?
Like the gunslinger?
Yeah, the gunslinger. Yeah.
I get that feeling that he's just the hired gun. Like he's not. He's on the outs. He sits away from them. He has his own confidence of how to deal with the situation. He takes control, and that's something that I think Shane. They're the same kind of person, Shane and Wilson. But Shane doesn't take control of the community people. Wilson takes control.
Yeah.
And that is a really cool dynamic between the two, and shows that opposite kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I love also how Shane and Wilson don't talk to each other. There's that one moment where when the guy's giving that monologue about the land, Shane's just seeing Wilson. And he just looks at him, drinks from the water, walks away. And Wilson does the same thing.
Yeah.
Exact same way. But there's no talk. And Shane almost knows immediately who this guy is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's a matter of control. I think it's a matter of who really owns the scene. And I can't stress enough how great the direction of this film is.
Yeah.
I think to me that's the thing that makes this film feel fresh.
It does. It really does. I watched this on VHS, and honestly, you don't notice that there's static or crackling. It just pulls you in because of how good the quality is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the ending to me between Shane and Joey is what we said before is where you said that he has to choose a father.
Yeah.
And how I felt so scared. Like when Shane hits his dad with a gun and he says, "I hate you," and Shane kind of just drives off, but he doesn't mean it, but he can't hear him. He has to follow him to this gunfight, which was scary. But then when he meets him and he is trying to get him back, but Shane knows he has a responsibility. This kid followed him for miles.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to tell this kid, be straight.
Yeah.
Take care of your family. Be that community man that your father was.
Yeah.
Don't follow me, because my way is the past.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Shane is wounded.
Yeah.
And do I think the big question is, do I think he dies? I don't think I don't think he dies. I think he can take care of himself. But I think he's away from... He says you got to be who you are. He's away from this kind of life, but he still knows who he is. And I think that's a sad kind of...
And the sad thing is at the end, he knows who he has to be. And as all great westerns do, it ends with the hero walking off into the sunset.
But it's not even the sunset, it's the night.
It's the night. And honestly, if you didn't expect that, if you wanted a spoiler alert for that, there's already no hope for you.
Yeah, and I was worried that I kind of know the beats of a western a bit, and without even seeing a lot. But even then, I was always wanting to see what was going on. Yeah. I love the dynamic, even with the wife. That was one thing.
Was one of the first really strong feminine roles.
Yeah.
For westerns, I'd say.
For westerns, yeah, because I immediately 4 just popped up in my head for a classic. I'm like, hold your roll there, buddy.
For westerns.
But no, for westerns, I could agree. And for me, this is one thing that I liked. I love the performance from the main actress. I forget her name. But
we do that a lot.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? But there was one, and now I'll go into the little bit of flaws.
Yeah.
The feeling of tension a little bit that's between Shane and the woman. Mm-hmm. At least I think that the film is trying to get across. Yeah. I didn't feel it as much. I knew that Shane was trying to find himself a woman, or that's one of the things that he talks about getting. And there's a scene where he's dancing with his wife, and then Joe kind of looks off and just kind of gets a concerned face. Yeah. I didn't feel anything there. I didn't feel like I understood where he was coming from, but I personally didn't feel that tension, because it was never brought on to me that Shane was ever going to make a move.
I completely agree with you on that one. It just kind of didn't feel like something he would do, just because you quickly figure out who he is, and it just doesn't seem real.
They chopped a stump together. If he's going to go after... I don't believe that this man would ever do anything. If you chop a stump together, you are brothers for life.
Exactly.
And the only other negative, and this is actually the big one for me. It's not big in terms of the story or the direction or the acting. It's actually the score.
Okay.
The musical score for this film is very generic to me.
Yeah.
I think it's Victor Young was the score for it. And I would want to see his filmography for scores, because it sounds like the kind of score that would just be in any Western. The only time I really liked it was the ending. From the shootout to the very end. Other than that, I found this movie was powerful without sound, without the music. And I was just like, I felt the material was stronger than it needed to be enhanced with the music.
I'll only slightly disagree with you.
Okay.
I liked the music from up the time where Shane and Joe started fighting. to the end.
Actually, there's no music when they're fighting. It's not until
not until he
it's not until
writing.
he hits him.
Yeah, and then the music. That's what I mean.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was just one of those moments where I was glad there was no music when there was that fight.
So was I.
And then I think when that hit made, there was a good sound, and there was a little jolt, which was good. But it wasn't until that very end that I really got.
It seemed generic. It seemed kind of, well, we need music in this. So
even the opening credits, I felt was just like, okay, here we go. Here's a western. I don't think I watched the opening credits. It's just a guy riding. Yeah. Fine. Who's this guy? Ooh, okay. Music's done. Let's watch this. Oh, very quick. But no, sorry. Do you have anything with that? Because like those were my only negatives.
I fell in love with the movie from a young age, so it's really hard for me to find flaws into it. Just still living through those child eyes. I can
see why you love this movie so much.
I also have to say, I love the little one-liners or the quotes that you can take from the movie. So Wilson, big bad gunslinger, and I think you're a good, low-down, no-good Yankee lying son of a... It's like, prove it. He doesn't have to say anything, just prove it. It goes from there, and then just... The gun is a tool quote. I always love that one, because that shows you exactly who Shane is.
And how he looks at it. Yeah. And I think that's also what kind of warps his perspective of being like, you can't change who you are. He looks at it as a tool, but it is an instrument of destruction as opposed to other kinds. Yeah.
Again, at the end, the quote is, as soon as you've killed a man, it leaves a mark. And that mark sticks with you. So you just have to be who you are.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the movie, I think.
Yeah, there's... To end, because I can't. More things are coming up in my head. Yeah. There's 3 quick things I wanted to say.
Of course.
To end it. Things I loved. The draw on Stonewall. How he takes a moment to just smile, look at him, and then shoot. Brilliant.
Also, I'll add on to that. As soon as Stonewall makes a move for his gun, as soon as he touches, he knows that he's dead. Mm-hmm. You see him just kind of...
He's got this cocky atmosphere, but...
As soon as he lifts up the gun, he just looks at him. He doesn't even raise the gun. He just waits for the bullet.
Mm-hmm. I also love how in the beginning, Joey's got a gun aimed at a deer, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like this family, like they must be really bad. They got to have a kid have a gun. But that's another thing that's so cool with him wanting bullets in the gun so he can use it. But it's more just like something he believes in and thinks about. And... I love that little moment where we realize it's fake. That's great. And when the gun is first shot, I'm trying to remember when it is. I think it's when Shane shoots at the rock.
Yep.
Feels like an explosion.
It does.
It's so off-putting in this scenario. Like, this is like a Western drama, and all of a sudden guns are involved. Like, no thank you. But I love the scrappiness, too, of the fights, too.
It really... The gun actually scares you. Because now, in movies, it's like, oh, a gun, and it's going to make a boom noise. Oh, well. But in this one, completely different feeling.
I love when a movie like this can make me, or something can make me feel afraid of something that I feel like I've gotten so accustomed to.
Yeah.
It's like, this just made guns scary.
Well, thank you for watching the movie, and I'm so glad you really liked it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for introducing it to me. I gotta say, this is just a delightful... It's a fun movie. It's a tragic film. I think anybody can watch this kind of movie, and that's the best kind of film that anyone can get into.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here, Paul, and listening to this. But I'm glad that you suggested this to me.
Thanks for letting me ramble on and add my points.
Yeah.
Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for watching this. Leave a comment down below, and as always, take care.